Welcome to StellaKMary channel, your escape to a BL world that makes your heart flutter. Before the story begins, remember to like the video and subscribe for more stories that are waiting for you. Now, let's get started.
Chapter 1. The Phone Call That Broke My Heart. Evan, honey, I'm sorry, but I won't be home this Christmas and New Year. A deep, guttural voice echoed through the loudspeaker of the phone resting on the kitchen counter. My hands froze. The scent of warm vanilla mixed with soft lavender shifted, its sweetness turning to a faint, burnt edge, like vanilla left too long on the heat. This change in my scent was clearly a hint of my heartbreak. "Oh, I see. Is it too busy over there?" I asked, keeping my voice steady, though I could feel it tremble slightly. I picked up the knife and continued working on chopping celery and onions into fine pieces, trying my best to concentrate on the rhythm of the knife and not the sound of my heart shattering into pieces. But I failed to focus no matter how hard I tried. The silver knife slipped, missing the green stalk entirely and cutting into my small finger instead. Ouch! My body flinched as the sharp object pierced my flesh, revealing a thin red line on my index finger. Though the wound wasn't severe, it still hurt. Yet the pain was not as painful as the ache twisting in my chest. "Honey!" Nathan's voice was laced with worry. "What's going on? Are you all right?" "I'm okay, Nathan. Don't worry. It's just a little cut," I answered, not wanting him to freak out more than he already had. "A cut?" I was chopping the vegetables for dinner. I accidentally nicked my finger, but the wound isn't that serious. "Don't fuss about it." "Please be careful," Nathan said softly. "You know how important your hand is. You're a surgeon." "Yeah, but it is okay. I don't have any surgery for the time being. I got a 3-week break before I officially start as a cardiothoracic surgeon, remember?" I said, trying to ease the tension in the air. "I'm so sorry, Evan. We were about to finalize everything, and I was looking forward to spending Christmas with you. But then a critical bug showed up in our code. My team and I now have to debug and run full regression tests to ensure nothing else breaks. Because we plan to launch the software early in January, we can't afford any errors. I'm truly sorry," Nathan said, voice tight with frustration. I sighed. Nathan and I had been together for 3 years. During those 3 years, I'd never missed a single thing about Nathan. I knew my husband inside out, as if he were made of transparent glass. So, even without seeing his face, I knew he was feeling guilty. I could hear it in his voice, no matter how hard he tried to hide it. Nathan is blaming himself. He must have thought I cut my finger because I was upset he didn't come home. I thought to myself, well, I wouldn't deny it. It was true. I was sad to hear about this. It would be a lie if I said those words didn't affect me. I was a human after all. Emotion ran deep inside me like a strong force of flood during the rainy season. It was typical in human nature that the more we loved, the stronger we suffered. This was one undeniable fact. Besides, from the moment we started dating, Nathan had never once missed spending Christmas and New Year with me. Since both of us were orphaned, we had no home or family to return to. So, we built a family of our own and celebrate together, sharing warmth and filling the winter's silence with each other's presence. Not once, in all those years, had we ever spent Christmas or New Year apart. But I guess nothing was permanent. Things changed over the course of time. And those changes began now. This year would mark the first time ever that we broke this routine. Don't worry about it. Work comes first. You just started your company, and being a new CEO is hectic. It's normal, I spoke in a soft voice, hoping to soothe my loved one despite my heavy heart. Don't worry too much. I understand that it isn't your intention not to come home. It's because of your work. You don't have to feel guilty about it. We exchanged nothing but silence. Even the heater, set on auto, chose this moment to pause, adding an even more profound stillness to the room. Thank you, Evan. You always spoiled me, said Nathan, becoming the first to break the silence. You're 5 years younger than me, Nathan. Since I am the older one, why can't I spoil you? I stated the fact. But I am the alpha, I should be the one to spoil my Omega plenty, said Nathan. Relationship is mutual, Nathan. It builds on the principles of give and take. Just because you're an alpha, it doesn't mean that I can't pamper you, I replied. You're like an angel, Evan. You're so kind. He paused before continuing. You deserve better. His voice laced with guilt again. His last phrase made me frown in confusion. But before I could say anything, a voice beat me to it. Nathan, hurry up. It's time for our papillon noir reservation, a soft female voice echoed from the background. I frowned, more at the words than the voice. Papillon noir? Isn't that restaurant famous for couples? Why would Nathan be going there? And with a woman? Evan, I gotta go now. I'll talk to you later. Wait nah. He hung up before I could say anything else. The phone beeped thrice before returning to silence, indicating that the call had already disconnected. My brows furrowed deeper in confusion at Nathan's strange behavior. Never, not once, had Nathan hung up first. He also never ended the call without saying, I love you. What's wrong with him? A voice echoed in the back of my head. Why is he suddenly acting so strangely like that? Is he hiding something from me? That voice? Who is she? A part of me tried to be reasonable. Come on, Evan. Maybe she is one of the developers on his team. Yes, she has to be, I murmured and nodded as if to reassure myself. I remembered a beta female, Nora, from his team. Wait a minute. A paranoid thought intercepted my reasoning. But she doesn't sound like Nora. So, maybe she was a business partner? Still, if that's the case, why would they go to have dinner at a restaurant that is famous for couples going on dates? I bit my lower lip, feeling whatever reassurance I'd built up earlier dissolve into dust. Should I call Nora? No. You'd never interfered with Nathan's work. You mustn't do this. Come on. You're just overthinking, Evan. I shook my head, hitting my temples lightly with the heels of my palms as if I could kick the doubts out of my mind. I mustn't let that tiny seed of suspicion grow and swallow me whole. Nathan and I had been together long enough to trust each other in marriage. I shouldn't be doubting him over something like this. It wasn't right. Calm down, Evan. Maybe it's just a business meeting, I told myself. Sure, Papillon Noir is a famous place that couples love to go, but that doesn't mean it's only used for dates. So, yeah, maybe he goes there for a business dinner. I'll just ask him when he gets back. For now, you need to trust your husband, Evan. Successfully pushing the suspicion aside, I walked to the top cabinet nearby, searching for the first aid kit box. I disinfected the small cut with alcohol and put on the bandage. After putting everything back in place, I headed back to finish cooking, thankful that nothing burnt so far. I tried to go on my day normally, but I couldn't shake off what happened today. In addition, memories of Nathan's recent strange behavior also popped up in my head. Earlier this year, he started coming home late. I thought it was normal since starting a company must be very demanding at the beginning. He was building a tech startup with only 6 people in his team, so his schedule must be hectic. But then there was another thing. I realized he had changed his phone passcode. He used to set our wedding day as his passcode, but that one time when I tried to use his phone, it denied me access. I wanted to ask him about it, but I didn't want to sound intrusive, so I let it go. But I noticed he seemed unusually possessive of his phone, keeping it close to him almost all the time. And once, he even snapped at me for trying to answer his phone, something he used to be fine with. All these strange behaviors, along with the unknown female voice I heard over his phone today, led me to a single question. Is Nathan cheating on me? Chapter 2. A Coffee for a Stranger. It had been 3 days since we last spoke. I wanted to call Nathan and ask about the female's voice, but I remembered he told me he was busy preparing for his new software launch. I didn't want my paranoia to disturb his work. So, I decided to wait until he came back to ask him face to face. Still, just to make sure he was doing okay, I sent him a few text messages just to ask how he was doing or if he had eaten. He replied to some of the text I had sent, while others went unanswered. Even with those he had answered, they were only short sentences. They were like he forced himself to reply. Nathan's strange behavior started to worry me. The more I thought about it, the more I realized he'd been acting like he was hiding something from me lately. "Oh, hot!" I exclaimed, spitting the coffee back into the cup out of survival instinct. I had been too absent-minded to notice just how steaming hot the coffee was. Knowing I couldn't drink from this cup again, I brought the cup to the sink and poured the rest of it down the drain. Is it really true that Nathan is cheating on me? I sighed at the same question that had been bothering me for days. No, you're overthinking again. An inner monologue came to life, preparing to bring a round of debate to the subject. You can't judge him with that. You know how much he loved you. I shook my head, trying to kick my brain back into gear and shut down the insecurity that had been gnawing at me. Yeah, Nathan loved me. He wouldn't do that. I nodded, agreeing with the angel's voice inside my head instead of the devil's voice. I should go out. Maybe that will clear my head somehow. Bundled up in a cozy sweater layered over a long-sleeve thermal, dark jeans, and a warm coat, I stepped out of the house into the winter chill. Oh no! I forgot the scarf again. I cursed myself as the cold December air blasted my face, biting at my neck. I was already away from the house, so I didn't feel like going back to get it. Every time we went out during winter, I always forgot my scarf. And every time, Nathan was always the one to take off his own scarf and wrap it around me. The memory drew a sigh from my lips. How I longed for the warmth, the smile, and the presence of my husband. Despite the doubts, my heart refused to stop its lovesick yearning. The heart wanted what it wanted, and right now, all it wanted was Nathan. My handsome husband. The one who wasn't with me right now. Nathan, I miss you, I uttered and sighed, watching the puff of smoke from my breath swirl and fade into the cold air. After walking for a short while, the warm aroma of freshly roasted coffee curled through the air, infiltrating my sense of smell. That was when I remembered I hadn't had my coffee this morning. I should get myself a cup, I whispered and pushed open the cafe door. The bell hung on the top of the door chimed softly like a gentle welcome as I stepped into the cozy little shop. I looked at the long line of people waiting to order and headed toward the end. Despite many people standing in the queue, it didn't feel like I was waiting long at all, since it moved steadily, each step bringing me closer to the counter. That is, until it was his turn. A tall man with jet black hair, with broad shoulders, and a presence so powerful that it almost made the noise in the coffee shop go silent. When he was at the counter, the line suddenly froze. What's going on? I muttered under my breath. I tiptoed, trying to peek over the shoulder of the person in front of me to see what was going on. but he was just too tall. Before I realized it, my feet had already moved forward, bringing me close enough to hear everything. That was when I finally saw him more clearly, shifting angle from his back view to side view. His brows were furrowed in frustration above his perfectly sculpted nose, and his sharp, intimidating gaze had the poor cashier looking pale like a ghost. "I'm really sorry, sir," the cashier said nervously. Her body shook like she was standing in the middle of a blizzard. "The card machine just broke down 5 minutes ago. So, we can only take cash now." The man exhaled in irritation. "And I just gave you cash. But you told me you couldn't accept it." "That is because we ran out of change. If you could give me a smaller bill." Tisk. He clicked his tongue like he was annoyed. "First, you don't take cards, then you want cash, now you want a different kind of cash? How are you running a business?" "I'm really sorry, sir," she said, bowing her head. "We are working on bringing more change at the moment. But our staff just called to inform us that there was a long line at the bank too. We are really sorry for this. If you could just return in a few minutes." "Forget it." He cut her off with a sigh and put the bill back into a wallet that looked like it cost more than my monthly expenses. Just as he turned to leave, I stepped in front of him, blocking his path. "I'll pay for his coffee." "And mine," I said to the cashier and handed her the bill. "A hot latte for me, please." The man turned to look at me, his dark eyes locked onto mine, steady, unblinking, and impossibly intense. The commanding alpha presence hit me like a wave, making my omega instinct shiver like a fledgling. What an intimidating aura, a small voice whispered at the back of my mind. "There's no need for you to do that," he said in a deep, hoarse voice. His tone was low enough to send a chill down my spine. "I don't like owing people." "You won't owe me anything." I cleared my throat, trying to act like this man hadn't just intimidated me. "Since it's the holiday season, let's consider this a gift." "A gift to a stranger?" he asked with his eyes narrowed. I shrugged. "Well, Santa gives gifts to children he doesn't know." "So, you're a Santa?" "I can be if you want me to." A low hum escaped him. Then the corner of his mouth moved into the faintest smirk. It was barely there, but I caught it. "You're an interesting person." "I'll take that as a compliment," I replied. While waiting for our coffees, I tried to start a conversation, but I was met with nothing more than a brief nod or a few words from him. All he did was look at his phone. Sensing he wasn't the type who enjoyed small talk, I eventually stopped, letting the silence settle between us. When our drinks were done, and the barista called us over to pick up, we headed to the counter together. As he reached for his cup, he lifted it up and slightly turned to me. "Thank you for the coffee, little Omega," he said with a smile. I wanted to say, "You're welcome," but my lips just froze. I wasn't sure if I was stunned by his sudden gentleness, or by how devastatingly handsome he was when he smiled like that. "Stop it, Evan. You're married. Don't find another man handsome," I chastised myself, then walked out of the cafe. Chapter 3: My Husband's Affair. The street outside the coffee shop was lined with small stalls displaying holiday gifts and decorations. A smile plastered my face as my eyes followed a few kids running around, playing a game of chase. They were having so much fun, totally ignoring their mother's calls from behind to be careful. I looked at two dark-haired boys, whom I assumed were siblings because of their similar features, running toward me. They were chasing each other and giggling loudly. I had always loved the sound of children. Growing up in the orphanage, I was surrounded by the shrieks and giggles of little ones, and somehow, it had always made me feel at home. I knew that now wasn't the right time to have a baby, Yet my Omega instincts yearned for one, a little life born from Nathan's and my love. But Nathan's career and mine were just taking a new turn. There simply wouldn't be enough time and energy to raise a child properly. Sorry, mister. The collision, accompanied by a cute little voice, made me look down. The two boys from before were standing next to my legs. The shorter one was rubbing his forehead, which had turned slightly red from bumping into my leg. I squatted down to his level and smiled. It's okay, I'm not hurt. Are you all right? I reached out to gently pat his forehead. I'm okay, he replied with a pout. What about your leg, mister? Don't worry. My leg is fine, I smiled. I'm sorry that my boys bumped into you, said the middle-aged woman who appeared out of breath. Then she looked down at her kids. I told you not to run when we're outside. Look what happened now. I stood up and gave the woman a polite smile. I'm okay. Don't worry. Kids just like to play. Thank you for your understanding, she nodded, looking back at me and returning the smile. We then said our goodbyes. I watched as the woman held her kids' hands firmly while they walked toward the bus station. My eyes stayed on them until they stepped onto the bus and disappeared from sight. A smile appeared again on my face as I thought of those cute little faces. However, I had never thought that when the bus pulled away and the opposite side of the street came into view, I would witness something that had been scaring me for the past few days. My smile vanished like a candle blown out. I gasped in shock as my grip loosened. The coffee cup that warmed my hand dropped to the ground, splashing the brown liquid over the concrete, when my gaze landed on a person across the street. The person I longed for but least expected to see. He was supposed to be in Paris, yet he was here, happily walking and linking arms with a gorgeous woman with blonde hair. My vision blurred with unshed tears as my eyes followed the man I loved with all my heart and that woman heading inside a shopping mall. My heart thudded painfully, and without thinking, my feet moved on their own, desperate to confirm what my eyes had just seen. On my way, I came across a stall selling caps and scarves. I grabbed the first item from each row and left the money on the table before rushing after them. My heart pounded as I pushed through the crowd, fearing I might have lost them. But thankfully, I managed to catch up just as they headed into the boutique. I yanked the scarf tight around my neck all the way up to my nose and angled the cap low over my brow before slipping into the store behind them. I pretended to browse through the rows of expensive clothes, but my eyes were glued to the two people ahead. The woman's hand clung to the man's arm, an unmistakable sign of intimacy. Now that I was this close, I could see it clearly. Every line and curve in his side profile matched him perfectly. No, Evan. It's just a side view. Don't jump to conclusions. A thought popped up at the back of my head as my pitiful heart was desperate to reason with my head. He might be a doppelganger. There was no way my husband would do this to me. However, all logical reasoning vanished the moment I heard the woman's words. Nathan, honey, she said in her sweet and soft voice, once you sign the contract with my dad's company, we should consider getting married. My dad wants to see the faces of his grandchildren. I know you just started a company, but you're no longer a developer. You're the CEO now. You should focus on building connections. Tasks like coding and testing, you can leave them to your team members, okay? My dad and I will introduce you to our business partners. If that's what you want, babe, I am good with it, the man replied, his familiar, gentle voice sending a stab through my chest. I'll get ready to give you a grand proposal. I'm looking forward to it. And don't forget, I want the ring that I just showed you, she said, leaning closer. But don't stress. I know your company is just starting, so just use my card, okay? But, Ella, Don't say anything, Nathan, she cut him off, lifting his left hand to cup her cheek. With my dad's help, your company will surely succeed. By then, you can spoil me all you want. Right now, just let me handle everything, okay? I stifled a sob when I spotted Nathan's ring finger, the one that had once held our wedding band, was now empty. Miss Bennett, we have prepared your outfit. It is waiting for you in the fitting room. A boutique staff member approached the woman with a bow and a polite smile. Wait for me, honey. I won't be long, she said, tiptoeing to give him a quick peck on the lips. Take your time, babe, Nathan replied. Once the woman disappeared from view, I slipped into another section of the boutique, pretending to browse the shoe display at the corner. I pulled out my phone with trembling hands and dialed Nathan's number, silently praying that the phone of the man in front of me wouldn't ring. But all my hope crumbled the instant it did, as the ringtone was unmistakably Nathan's ringtone. I watched as he glanced at the screen, clicked his tongue in irritation, and let the call go to voicemail. Only then did he type out a message that I read on my phone. I'm busy. Can't talk now. Tears streamed down my face, soaking the scarf I used in an attempt to hide my face. Now it also hid my misery. For the whole evening, I followed Nathan and the woman at a careful distance. I trailed them silently until they reached their final destination, a lavish 5-star hotel. I sank onto a bench outside, hugging myself to brace against the chilly air as I stared at the grand building. Memories of Nathan and me kept replaying in the back of my mind. Our first date, the day he proposed, that moment when we exchanged the rings and said, I do. Everything felt like it just happened yesterday. However, the happiness I thought we had, the promise of forever, and the future we dreamt of now shattered like broken glass. Everything around me went silent. The weight of the betrayal hurt so bad that it hurt to even breathe. How could he do this? What went wrong? We'd never even fought once. So, why did he do this? Was it simply a change of heart? A series of questions ran inside my head, each tore through my chest like tiger talons. After what felt like hours, I spotted Ella coming out of the hotel, fixing her hair with a happy smile as she got into a black luxury car. Nathan was alone. I steadied my breathing and stood up. If there was ever a moment to get answers, it was now. I made up my mind. I was going to talk to him. Fishing out the phone from my pocket, I dialed his number. Thankfully, this time he picked it up. Chapter 4: The End of Our Marriage. Snow began to fall all over the city. Its flake piled up until the once green hotel lawn became a white icicle. Everything looked pure and peaceful, contradicting the storm about to break inside my chest. Nathan stood before me, hands tucked behind his back, his face void of any expression. Since you already know, he said quietly, let's not drag this out. The world goes silent. When I told him what I saw today, I was hoping he would say I was mistaken. I hoped he would give me an explanation. But all he said was, this. I swallowed the lump in my throat and said, I want to know why. My voice cracked despite my effort not to be weak. The company that bought my software is owned by Ella's dad. He agreed to invest because Ella recommended my company. But his condition was that I had to marry her. Didn't they know you are a married man? I asked, thinking they might have thought Nathan was single, which was why this complication happened. They do, said Nathan, matter-of-factly. But they gave me a chance to choose. And you chose your company, I whispered, the words trembling under the heaviness pressing down on my heart. Evan, you know how much that software means to me. Ever since I was a freshman in high school, I've been working on this project day and night. You, of all the people, know this better than anyone else. You saw how much blood, sweat, and tears I've poured into this software. You saw how much I struggled to find someone who would invest in this software. That was why I quit my job and started my own company with the money I had saved. But running a business without powerful connections isn't easy, Evan. I was having a hard time until Ella and her dad came to my rescue. I can't let my effort go to waste when such a golden opportunity finally comes. He paused, taking a deep breath. Then he stepped closer and reached out for my hands. Evan, you know how much I love you. I still do. But I'm tired of being looked down on. I'm tired of having to struggle just to survive. We've lived in poverty for so long, Evan. We were raised in the orphanages. You knew how hard our lives were. Now that there's a chance for me to rise to the life I have always wanted, I can't let it slip away. I can't let this chance go. But you can let me go, I said in a voice barely audible, if not for the quiet night. I'm sorry, Evan. Nathan lowered his gaze to stare at his shoes. It was as if he was avoiding looking at me, like he couldn't bear to see the damage he'd done. I wished he had more to say. I wished he prepared more words to talk to me instead of just saying he was sorry. But he didn't. Still, I couldn't blame him. I also didn't know what else to say. Nathan had already decided. He already chose his path. No talk was ever going to change anything. After a few minutes of silence between us, he decided to continue. His eyes still refused to meet mine. His gaze was fixed on the ground. I already had the attorney prepare the divorce papers. I've been carrying them with me for some time, but I didn't have the heart to give them to you. Now that you know. He paused, hesitating to say the next word. But he said it anyway. I'll have them send it to our apartment tomorrow. I mean your apartment. I already wrote down in the paper that you can keep the house after we part ways. I'm moving to Paris with Ella in 2 weeks. Evan, I'm terribly sorry to say this, but please sign the paper as soon as you can. No, I said, taking my hand away from his hold. His head snapped up, eyes widening. Fear flickered across his face as if he was afraid that I might cling to him and refuse to let go. I forced myself to stand tall even as my body threatened to give out beneath me. Since you already have the papers, I spoke, straining to keep my voice steady despite the ache in my heart. Then let's do it tonight. Chapter 5. An unexpected kiss from a familiar stranger. I lost track of how far or how long I had walked after Nathan and I signed the divorce papers. All I knew was that I'd now ended up at the city's park. It was supposed to be a place that should have been bustling with laughter and joy, but now it was lifeless and silent since it was nearly midnight. My feet halted, bringing me to a stop in front of the massive Christmas tree at the center. I looked at the glittering golden fairy lights until the lights blurred into a haze. Tears streamed down my face like a broken dam after I had held them back all day. Every feeling I had buried, the heartbreak and the betrayal, came rushing out all at once. Why did you do this to me, Nathan? I sobbed, clutching my chest as if I could wrench my heart out to stop the ache. You've been cheating on me all this time? Why couldn't you at least tell me before seeing her? Maybe it wouldn't matter to anyone else, but to me. If he had simply told me he found someone new and wanted a divorce, it would have hurt me less than this searing agony of discovering he had been cheating on me. I was so lost in my own cry that I didn't hear the rapid footsteps closing in. I didn't even notice a shadow looming behind me until someone seized my arms and dragged me toward the back of the Christmas tree. I was about to scream for help, but a warm hand clamped over my mouth, cutting off my voice. Don't scream. I won't hurt you. I just need you to play along, said a deep, familiar voice. He hovered just behind me, so close I could feel the heat of his breath against the back of my ear. Before I could even find the words to ask what he wanted, he turned me around. His grip shifted smoothly from my arm to my waist, holding me firmly against him. He lifted his other hand from my mouth and reached up, fingers closing around the brim of my hat. He took it off my head and placed it atop his own. Then he leaned down, closing the distance between us, and pressed his lips firmly yet tenderly to mine. Everything was done with the speed of light, and I barely had time to process. I should be scared. I should be mad. I should push him away. However, I felt safe in the arms of this familiar stranger. Just then, out of the corner of my eyes, I spotted several men clad in black, darting around with knives and guns. They moved like predators, and their eyes scanned the surrounding area as if they were searching for someone. Something told me that they were searching for the man who was kissing me right now. For an unknown reason, a protective instinct surged through me. I wanted to protect this man. I would do anything to keep him safe. As quickly as I could, I yanked off my scarf and wrapped it around both our necks, masking nearly half of our faces. My hands found the back of his neck, and I pulled him down, deepening the kiss. I hoped to hide his face as much as possible. With one eye kept open, I tracked the movement of those men. One of them paused and looked in our direction, but once he spotted us kissing, he looked away. I kept watching until those men ran past us and disappeared in another direction. A public display of affection. Dumb, yet effective. It was so awkward that it made people so uncomfortable that they overlooked us. Come to think of it, if I were those men, surely I wouldn't expect the man I chased to stop in the middle of a park for a kiss. Thanks to the giant Christmas tree, it also helped hide the tall man's frame. Once those men were out of sight, I tapped the stranger's shoulder gently, signaling him to let me go. And he did. "They're gone," I whispered. "Thank you. I'm sorry for doing that, but..." The man suddenly collapsed, his breathing became labored. Hey. I tried with all my strength to hold him, but he was too heavy. We both sank to the ground. Thankfully, I managed to protect his head from hitting the pavement. "Hey, are you okay?" I put his head on my lap, tapping his cheek gently. I gasped in shock as blood from my hand, the same hand I had just tapped on his shoulder, smeared across his face. "Oh no, you're hurt. Let me call the ambulance." I tried to reach for my phone in my pocket, but the man grabbed my hand, holding me in place. No hospital," he said weakly. "What do you mean, no hospital? You're bleeding." He shook his head and pointed to his suit. I frowned, wondering what he meant. "The phone. Call Dan." Before I could ask anything else, he passed out. "Hey, wake up. Hey." I tapped his cheek several times, but there was no response. I should call for help, but he warned me not to call the ambulance. Surely, he must have a reason to be this secretive. If I called out for help, what if those men in black hear it and return? The thought of those dangerous people made me realize that we were too exposed. Gathering all of my strength, I started dragging him to the far side of the park, where thick bushes offered some cover. For now, it would have to serve as a makeshift hiding spot. "Where does the blood come from?" I muttered to myself. I took off the jacket of his black suit and frowned as a dark red stain spread across his left shoulder, soaking through his white shirt. After I unbuttoned his dress shirt, I gasped when I saw a single entry wound. The skin was bleeding heavily, but there was no visible exit. This was unmistakably a gunshot wound. "He lost so much blood," I muttered. My doctor's mode kicked in. I used my scarf to press the wound firmly, trying to stop the blood from pouring out. Please stay with me," I muttered and pressed harder. What should I do? I racked my brain for a solution because, judging by his situation, his life would be in danger if he continued losing more blood. All right, he said to call Dan. Just as I tried to search for his phone, a faint vibration pulsed through the jacket lying on the ground next to me. With my free hand, I reached in and fished it out. The caller ID read, Dan. Perfect timing if you asked me. Thank you for calling, I said the moment I answered the phone. There was a silence before a threatening voice echoed from the other side of the phone. Who is this? Why do you have boss's phone? Boss? A question popped into my head. Does he own a company like Nathan, too? But Nathan's employees never called him boss. I asked who this is. The voice on the other end turned menacing, each syllable sharp and cold. Oh, sorry. I'm LGBTQ. I paused. I was no longer married to Nathan, so I didn't have to use his last name anymore. I'm Evan Snowfield. The owner of this phone has fainted, and he is bleeding. He asked me to call Dan instead of the hospital. So, if you're the Dan he talks about, please come and help. Where are you? The voice shifted to panic. Who's with you? We're at the main city park. There are only 2 of us. Good, stay there. Make sure to stay hidden until I get there. Before I could say anything else, the line went dead, so I put the phone back into his jacket and focused my attention on the wound. There was nothing else I could do now except press the scarf harder to stop the bleeding and waited for the guy named Dan. As I waited, my eyes drifted to his face, and a strange sense of familiarity tugged at me. With my free hand, I removed his hat, revealing more of his features. Only then did I realize why I find him familiar. He was the man I had met at the cafe earlier today. End of part 1. We've reached the end of part 1. If you don't want to miss part 2, subscribe, like, and turn on the notification bell to be notified as soon as it's out. Can you guess the identity of the man who kissed Evan? Which moment between Evan and this familiar stranger stole your heart more? The coffee shop meeting or the kiss at the park? Share your thoughts in the comment below. I'd love to hear what you think. See you in part 2.